For all you DIYers, there's a video on how to remove the alternator on a 2014 Toyota Tundra. There's a part number, you can see it at the beginning of the video. It's my first video, so don't be too harsh on me. Start out by removing the power cable on the battery. If yours is a little rusty like mine is, you'll want to clean it up before you go and hook it back up. Sand it down, wipe it down. Do the same thing for the terminal post. That way you get a better connection. Next thing you'll want to do is remove the shield guard. But the front, there's two 10mm bolts. In the back, there is three 12mm bolts. Also, there's one in the front next to the 10mm bolt. Here's a better look at the three bolts you got to remove in the back. Remember guys, this is my first DIY video, so please don't be too harsh. Also, here's a quick glimpse of the one that's in the front, right by the 10mm bolts. Also guys, I'm not a mechanic, I'm just a guy trying to save money. The shop quoted me $1,400 for this job, which to me seems a little bit extreme. If you're watching this video and you're thinking about doing this job, take your time. I would put WD-40 on some of these nuts and bolts. You don't want them to break on you, snap on you. This job only took me about 3.5 hours. Be ready for the shield guard to come down. It comes down quick. Next, I went and lifted the truck from one side. You can do it at the beginning or up until this point, but you do have to lift it because you have to remove the tire on the passenger side. There's the alternator. It's on the passenger side at the bottom. It does have to come out through the bottom. You got to remove the sway bar. There's 4 bolts. I recommend you putting WD-40 on them so they come out easier. You don't want to snap them. Next, you'll want to remove the tire. Sorry for this bad angle, but recording with one hand and trying to do something else with the other one is hard. So for all you guys that make a lot of videos for us DIYers, thank you, but it is very tough, guys. There's a couple of videos of this process, but nobody does a step-by-step when they're doing it. Everybody talks about how they did it or what tools you need. So that's why I decided to make my own video. Anytime I lift a vehicle, I like to put the tire under the vehicle. That way, if it was to fall, it doesn't fall on you. It'll hit the tire first. You gotta remove this rubber guard. It's like a dust shield. It's got a few clips on there. The one up there, you don't gotta remove. It can just dangle. Just remove the one at the top, the one at the bottom, and then the one towards the back. I decided not to remove that bottom one. I just tucked it under and got it out of the way. So there's a power steering pump. You do have to remove it and get it out of the way so you can access the bolts of the alternator. So you want to start off by unclipping this connector. It's a little hard with one hand, so bear with me. Struggled with it just a little bit. There is a little clip at the bottom of it. You got to push it in and it'll pop right out. Took me a couple of seconds to figure it out, but we got it out. Remember guys, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just showing you how I did it. Hopefully it can help some people out there. You do have to get this clip out. And there's a second one. I'll point it out here in a second. But when you move the power steering towards the front, you need that slack on that harness so the power steering can be moved out of the way. There's the other one I was talking about. Pull those off. I didn't record it. It's really hard doing it with one hand and recording with the other. Next thing you want to do is grab a breaker bar or any ratchet actually, or whatever you have, but it is a 14 millimeter socket that I used to release some of the tension on this tensioner. Once you release some of the tension, just grab the belt, set it aside. You don't have to remove it completely, but just enough to get it off the power steering pulley and the alternator pulley. The next step is very frustrating and difficult, but just take your time and you'll get it done. There's a bolt right there. There's one right above. And to remove those, you got to come in through the front of the pulley. There's some holes. It'll work. And from that bottom bolt right across towards the driver's side, there's another bolt. So there's a total of 3 bolts for this pulley. I kept going from the top of the engine to the side of the engine, trying to get these darn bolts off. I did the breaker bar from the top, broke them free, then I went back to the bottom and unscrewed them with that 14 millimeter socket. Like I said, you got to go through the front of the pulley. It's frustrating, it's hard, it's difficult, but just take your time and you'll get it done. And 2 of the bolts are very long, so there'll be a lot of turns and turns and turns till they come off, but once you get it off, it's very satisfying. Once you have all 3 bolts out, just wiggle the power steering pump back and forth, tap it with something. You don't want to hit it too hard, just enough to break it loose, and then just wiggle it back and forth till it pops out. Towards the end of this pump coming out, I just wiggled it back and forth. My hand was hurting, I was tired. It's a very difficult job, but it's definitely not impossible. Once you have the power steering pump off, just push it forward. There's some hoses and stuff. You can move out of the way to push the pump, further forward. So there's the alternator. There's 2 bolts at the top. There's the main connector. There's a little clip towards the firewall. Click on it and it'll pop right out. Right below that connector is the ground cable. Guys, don't forget to remove it. That's just a 10 millimeter bolt. I forgot to show it, but you can kind of see it right below the connector. Next, I grabbed my smaller impact with an extension and a 14 millimeter socket. Next to that bolt, there is a nut you got to remove. It's the main hanger for the alternator. Now you come to the bottom and there is 2 more bolts. There's this one right here that I point at, and right next to it towards the firewall, there's another one. You got to remove a total of 4 bolts from the alternator in order for it to come off. I don't know why I waited till the very end to do the sway bar, but when you guys do the shield guard from the bottom, just remove the bolt so you can pull that sway bar down and it'll be out of your way. Like I said, guys, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a guy doing it himself. Once you get the alternator off that hanger, you're pretty much home free. Bring it down. You're gonna have to wiggle it, jimmy it, and pull it out from the bottom towards the front. Move those hoses, wires, whatever's in the way. Pull it down. Now the new alternator, I did go through the wheel weld, went in there easier. Repeat the whole process and put everything back together, and you should be good.